Good morning, River of Life. I'm continuing in Galatians, and I'm in Galatians chapter 2. And remember, I said last time that Galatians is a story. It's the story of the Galatian church turning away from the true gospel, and it's the story of Paul and how he discovered the gospel truly straight from God. And he described how after he found the gospel, he spent time in study, he spent time away, and now he writes in chapter 2. I'm going to read several verses here, so just sit back and relax. Then after 14 years, I went up again to Jerusalem, this time with Barnabas. I took Titus along with me. I went in response to a revelation, and meeting privately with those esteemed as leaders, I presented to them the gospel that I preach among the Gentiles. I wanted to be sure I was not running, and had not been running, my race in vain. Yet not even Titus, who was with me, was compelled to be circumcised, even though he was a Greek. This matter arose because some false believers had infiltrated our ranks to spy on the freedom we have in Christ Jesus and to make us slaves. We did not give in to them for a moment, so that the truth of the gospel might be preserved for you. As for those who were held in high esteem, whatever they were makes no difference to me. God does not show favoritism. They added nothing to my message. On the contrary, they recognized that I had been entrusted with the task of preaching the gospel to the uncircumcised, just as Peter had been to the circumcised. For God, who is at work in Peter as an apostle to the circumcised, was also at work in me as an apostle to the Gentiles. James, Cephas, and John, those esteemed as pillars, gave me and Barnabas the right hand of fellowship when they recognized the grace given to me. They agreed that we should go to the Gentiles and they to the circumcised. All they asked was that we should continue to remember the poor, the very thing I had been eager to do all along. So in the story, we see that when Paul was confronted by people, the same type of people that confronted the Galatian church, who were saying you must do specific works in order to be saved, and the specific one is circumcision. The apostles, the original disciples, recognized that Paul had the right gospel, that he did not have to add anything to the gospel. And I think it's great that Paul was able to verify what he was learning from the revelation he had of Christ in the first place, learning from the scriptures, and he's able to share it with those who had walked with Christ, and he realized he had not run his race in vain. Notice, though, that they do ask Paul to remember the poor. I think what's interesting is that when we get so involved in theological arguments and debates, we sometimes forget that we are called to be God's hands and feet to the poor. Let us dedicate ourselves today to be true to the gospel, that we remember the poor, not so that that saves us, because that does not save us, but because we are saved. God bless you, River of Life.